It's Monday, April 3. In the headlines, NHD to widen loan facilities. In business news, PBCJ and CONIP sign MOU. Regionally, in Antigua, economic recovery underpinned by government's COVID management. Internationally, we look at the indictment of U.S. President Donald Trump and what it means for American politics. In sports, West Indies Rising Stars Under-15 Championship. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. The National Housing Trust, NHD, is widening access to its loan facilities. The government agency says as of Monday, April 3, the NHD will be piloting a new mortgage financing model, the External Financing Mortgage Program. The NHD says it will replace the current Joint Finance Mortgage Program on a phased basis to expand the list of mortgage institutions through which contributors can access their NHD loans. This list will now include credit unions along with commercial banks. The National Commercial Bank and COK Solidarity Cooperative Credit Union already signed on to the program. Jamaicans will be required to show proof of hotel reservations when they travel to Belize. Reports are that Belize's government has made the move because of the increased number of visitors from Jamaica and Haiti. It's believed that the visitors are using the country as a transit to reach the United States. The John Bresciano government says following a thorough discussion, Cabinet has determined that Belize will invoke Article 226A of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, which governs the 15-member regional integration movement, of which both Jamaica and Haiti belong. Invoking Article 226A of the treaty would allow for the Minister of Immigration to immediately impose a visa requirement for Haitians wishing to visit Belize and to require Jamaican nationals to provide evidence of fully paid, non-refundable hotel reservations prior to boarding flights to Belize. Both Haiti and Jamaica are signatories to the CARICOM Single Market and Economy that facilitates the free movement of capital. Chief Justice of Jamaica Brian Sykes says that the idea is that more and more focus should be placed on allocating the resources of the judiciary system correctly in order that the justice system of the nation become more and more efficient in its mandate to dispense justice. According to Justice Sykes, the whole idea is to allocate to the judiciary all required resources depending on the level of complexity or simplicity of the cases. The Chief Justice made his remarks at the Spanish Court Hotel in Kingston at the third staging of a conversation with the judiciary held under the auspices of the Court of Administration Division.
So what you need to have is an efficient system end to end. So when you look at the whole process from arrest right through to trial and appeal, how efficient is that process? And where we tend to have significant delays, because when you look at the report from the Supreme Court, it will indicate to you that when the criminal cases now are ready for trial, they actually move on very quickly. The delay comes in the build up to the trial. And so what the data is telling us is that third-party actors are now responsible for significant delays. For example, defense counsel absent, disclosure to be made by the prosecution, various certificates to be provided. Those are the things that are hampering now the rate at which the cases can move on once they enter the court system. So if you have that improved and the time between arrest and trial is actually within our time standard of 2 years, I suspect it will have greater impact regardless of how severe the penalty may be, because if I am a criminal, for example, and I realize that these things are taking years to come on for trial, why is that a deterrent? It doesn't matter what the penalty is. The question is, will I be tried? And will I be tried in an appropriate time period? That is really the question. So penalties in and of themselves, while they need to be appropriate, but harsh penalties in and of themselves have not deterred people from committing crime. If that were the case, we wouldn't have any criminals today. Human beings have been around a long time.
Time now for the business report with Danita Rodney.
The Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, PBCJ, has signed a Memorandum of Understanding with its counterpart in the Dominican Republic, the Consejo Nacional de la Empresa Privada, CONCEP, to promote investment and commercial development. One of the main objectives of this agreement is to promote the exchange of knowledge, develop commercial and investment relations, and improve the environment of the private sector to increase cooperation and trade between Jamaica and the Dominican Republic. The memorandum was signed by CONCEP's President Celso Juan Maranzini and PBCJ President Metriciaga at the CONCEP headquarters. Also present was Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce Senator Albin Hill and the Dominican Republic's Ambassador to Jamaica, Angie Martinez. Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Friday, March 31, the US dollar sold for an average of $150.91. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $113.42. The pound sterling traded for $189.48, and the euro sold for an average of $167.54. In JSE trading, the JSE index advanced by 5,465 points. The junior market index advanced by 93 points. The combined market index advanced by 5,958 points. And the All Jamaican Composite Index advanced by 6,292 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 109 stocks, of which 57 advanced, 33 declined, and 19 traded firm. Stocks advanced for Access Financial Services Limited, Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited, and Caribbean Cement Company Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, AMJ Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Barita Investments Limited. Trading firm were Blue Power Group Limited, Cargo Handlers Limited, and EPI 7.50% preference shares due 2024. The overall volume leaders were Regency Petroleum Company Limited with over 6 million units, JFP Limited with over 5 million units, and Isnis Pharma Jamaica Limited ordinary shares with over 4 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Calypso Macro Index Fund posted over 1,000 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Insurance Corporation of Barbados Limited was the volume leader with 800 shares. They were followed by First Caribbean International Bank and Goddard Enterprises Limited, which traded 532 shares respectively. In regional business, a major international construction and engineering company based in Mumbai says it is actively considering collaborating with the Caribbean, including Trinidad and Tobago, to assist with its development needs.
Shapoorji Pallonji and Company Private Limited, a global diversified organization of 17 companies, is looking to expand its footprint in the Caribbean. The company had previous business dealings in the region, having built the Guyana National Stadium in Providence to host the 2007 Cricket World Cup, which had a capacity of 15,000 spectators. Regional Head of Business Development for the Latin American market, Manoj Singh, expressed his interest to assist in developmental projects in Trinidad and Tobago. He said in addition to a specific form of financing for CARICOM countries from the government of India, the company also lends support to arrange financing if needed.
$150 million is what is available for the region to avail from Government of India. There are other financing options also, wherein we can get financing from European banks, from export credit agencies, from UK Export Finance, from EDC Canada. So as long as the government is willing to borrow for a key infrastructure project, we are in a position to arrange financing.
He noted that Shapoorji Pallonji has a vast amount of experience across 14 countries and has been involved from engineering and construction to infrastructure and even energy industries.
We are there in almost all sectors of infrastructure, whether it is residential building, commercial building, hotels, convention centers, stadiums. We are into road, railway, bridges, flyovers, hospitals. We are there into energy sector. We do a lot of solar power plants. We do conventional power plants, hydropower plants.
The company also assists countries to arrange financing for projects based on their needs and urgency of the project.
There are two categories of loan. One is a concessional, which is offered by Government of India under line of credit program. So it's typically a 25 years loan with a moratorium of 5 years. And the interest rates ranges between 1.5 to 1.75%.
Shaparuchi Palonchi also announced that it is in negotiation to set up a business development office in Guyana in the coming months. Sonolala reporting from Mumbai in India.
In international business, stocks rallied on Friday and the Nasdaq posted its best quarter since 2022. More in this report.
A turbulent quarter for stocks ended with a rally on Friday as signs of cooling inflation boosted hopes the Federal Reserve might soon end its aggressive interest rate hikes. The Dow gained 1.25%, the S&P 500 climbed nearly 1.5%, and the Nasdaq jumped 1.75%. to notch the index's biggest quarterly percentage gain since June of 2020. It was also the second straight quarter of gains for the S&P, despite a sharp sell-off in bank stocks following the collapse of two regional lenders earlier this month and worries about a potentially wider financial crisis. Data on Friday from the Commerce Department showed consumer spending rose moderately in February, while inflation cooled.
I think what's driving the markets, however, is specific to the Federal Reserve.
Sam Stovall is chief investment strategist at CFRA Research.
Expectations are that if they do raise rates one more time, it'll be in May, and it'll be the final one of this rate tightening cycle. And history tells us that the Fed then starts to cut interest rates an average of 9 months later. So I think investors are beginning to look across the valley and hoping that the fundamentals will show improvement.
Shares of big tech gained as U.S. Treasury yields eased, with the yield on the 2-year note posting its largest monthly drop since 2008. Higher yields tend to be a negative for big tech companies. Also, Apple shares rose Friday after it won its appeal to dismiss a UK antitrust probe into its mobile browser.
In market data for oil prices surged, posting their biggest daily rise in nearly a year after a surprise announcement by OPEC Plus to cut more production jolted markets. Brent crude was trading at $84.53 a barrel, up $4.64, and West Texas Intermediate crude was at $80.23, up $4.56. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, China's ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago, Fang Xu, says over the last year, trade between the two countries has grown. More in this report.
There has been double-digit growth in the trade between Trinidad and Tobago and China. This is according to the Republic of China's ambassador to this country, Fang Xu. China is one of TNT's major trading partners.
Last year, the total annual trade volume exceeded $1.3 billion, registering a growth of 23.4% year-on-year. The Phoenix Industrial Park, the first flagship project jointly built by the two countries under the Belt and Road Initiative, is about to be completed.
The Chinese ambassador noted there will be significant benefit for TNT from this project,
which will inject strong impetus into Trinidad and Tobago's strategy of diversifying its economy and attract more Chinese companies to invest in Trinidad and Tobago. Practical economic and trade cooperation between the two countries enjoys broad prospects.
Ambassador Fang made his comments as he opened the China, Trinidad and Tobago 2-day trade show on Friday. Terry Ann Brown Campbell, TTT News.
Prime Minister Gaston Brown is crediting the government's decision during the worst of COVID-19 pandemic fallout in Antigua with a robust recovery of the economy. The Prime Minister also insists that as the economy continues to expand, there will be an increased benefit to more people through a trickle-down impact. Garfield Burford reports.
Prime Minister Honorable Gaston Brown says the strong rebound in economic activity was due in part to what he said were prudent decisions during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. He says many people have underestimated the government's management of the crisis.
The reduction in the economy was 17% compared to a net, and if we have to deal with gross, it was a 23% reduction between 2009 and 2014. With an issue, a global crisis with far less impact. So by virtue of not locking down the country's economy for any extended period, we were able to keep the country's economy afloat and to literally reduce the impact of COVID. Otherwise, perhaps the reduction would have been more like 25–30%.
The head of government makes it clear the country's heavy reliance on tourism made it one of the most vulnerable to the shock from COVID.
We recognized at the time that we had to take more risk because we're more vulnerable than others, not because the Prime Minister loved money, as how our political opponents would have said. It's because we had to balance lives and livelihoods. So it's not a coincidence that Antigua and Barbuda was the first country to reopen its economy on June 1st, 2020. We did so out of necessity.
He says the government has quantified what would have been lost if it had not acted in the way it did.
It would have amounted in $1 billion in lost revenues if we had not taken that type of decision. And I want you all to digest that if we did not take on the risk that we took on during that period of COVID, the discussion would be a different one today. Today I can stand before you and say to you that as a result of our collective efforts, that we have added $1.6 billion, or would have added by the end of this year, $1.6 billion to the country's economy.
Tourism and construction have been the linchpin of the economy's recovery, which saw growth of 8.5% in real gross domestic product in 2022. However, the government has been faced with pushback that this is not being felt by many ordinary people. In response, the Prime Minister insists there will be greater trickle-down as the economy continues to expand. He also had this retort to those who have questioned whether ordinary people are among those who contributed to $145 million more in savings last year.
To the best of my knowledge, it's working class people who carry savings. Business people, they have foreign currency accounts, they have current accounts. But when it comes to savings, it's primarily working class people, the taxi men, and the vendors and so on. They have their savings account. And the fact that the economy has been doing extremely well, those individuals have been able to increase their savings by $145 million in a single year. And I just hope that those who want to challenge us, that they will come with facts. You cannot speculate that, it's a few business people in the country who would have benefited from $145 million. First of all, business people don't put their money in savings.
The Guyanese government on Friday launched the Occupational Safety and Health Month of activities, recognizing the importance of maintaining health and safety in the workplaces.
The main sectors of focus are mining, construction, agriculture, and oil and gas.
I recognize that the need existed for the Ministry of Labor to establish offices and have occupational safety and health officers stationed in all 10 administrative regions, and more in particular, Region 1, 7, 8, and 9.
This position was taken for several reasons, which included an increased level of economic activities within the regions, fatal accidents within the mining sector, and a need for the promotion and maintenance of safety and health at work.
Whilst workplace fatalities continue to be of great concern to this ministry, it must, however, be reported that there has been a continuing decline of the numbers of workplace fatalities when compared to previous years, as indicated by some of the speakers before me. In 2021, there was a 16% decline, and in 2022, there has been a 22% decline.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the Private Sector Commission, Paul Chung, warned that though the private sector catalyzes the economy, growth should not trump the well-being of the workforce.
The Private Sector Commission acknowledges the significance of human capital in the advancement of our country and its citizens, as the well-being of its people is a critical aspect of national prosperity. To enhance the value of human capital, continuous investment in training, development, protection of their rights, and occupational health and safety practices at the workplace are essential.
This year, OSH is observed under the theme, "A safe and healthy working environment is a fundamental principle and right at work."
In international news, Donald Trump is the first former U.S. president to face criminal charges. A grand jury has been investigating a $130,000 payment to actress Stormy Daniels. Trump denies an affair with her and any wrongdoing. He says he's a victim of a witch hunt by the Democrats. How will this impact Trump's 2024 presidential election campaign and U.S. politics? Here's more in this report from Al Jazeera.
A grand jury has been investigating a payment in exchange for the silence of an adult film actress. Stormy Daniels allegedly had an extramarital affair with Trump, which he's always denied. If the money was paid and not disclosed during the 2016 election campaign, it would amount to a criminal offence. Media reports in the US suggest the former president may be facing other charges. Trump denies all wrongdoing and says he's the victim of a witch hunt by the Democrats, accusing them of trying to prevent his return to the White House. The man who served as his vice president says Trump's political opponents are behind the prosecution.
First, let me just say, I think the unprecedented indictment of a former president of the United States for a campaign finance issue is an outrage. And I think it's clear to the overwhelming majority of the American people that this is nothing short of a political prosecution being affected by a Manhattan DA who literally campaigned on bringing charges against one particular American. And I must tell you that that should be offensive to every American, left, right, and center. Every American deserves equal treatment under the law. And I believe the American people will see this for what it is.
If Trump got arrested for the charges they're talking about now, I would vote for him 10 times over, okay? Because if he was a Democrat, it would never come up. And I just don't believe there's anything to it, and even if there is, so what? You know, it's his own private life.
Yeah, I know that Donald Trump's being arrested or indicted for maybe a possible arrestment this week, and I think that's just the far left again, just another attack on Donald Trump. And they're getting very tiresome, and again, Donald Trump is for America, and he fights for Americans.
In Israel, that country's cabinet has approved the creation of a national guard proposed by the far-right security minister, who is being accused of trying to establish his own, quote, private militia, end quote. We join Al Jazeera for that story.
Concerns that it will be kind of a private militia, or it will be parallel to the existing forces to work at the same territory with the different commanding, it will be a disaster. We can't accept that there will be any kind of law enforcement which is not under the regulation, the law, and order of the police commissioner.
I've seen a worsening of the anti-Palestinian rhetoric and incitement against the Palestinians that has clearly, possibly impacted the violence that has been unleashed against the Palestinians. I've seen an increase in the forms of humiliation and in the indignities that are imposed on the Palestinians.
In sports, the West Indies Rising Stars Under-15s Championship will be played in Antigua from Tuesday, April 4 to Wednesday, April 12. Cricket West Indies says in a release that the tournament will feature the 6 regional teams who will each play 5 rounds of 50-over matches at 3 venues: Sir Vivian Richards Stadium, Coolidge Cricket Ground, as well as Liberta Sports Club. The opening round will see home team Leeward Islands taking on Windward Islands at the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium. Trinidad and Tobago will meet Guyana at Coolidge Cricket Ground, and Jamaica will face defending champions Barbados at Liberta. All matches start at 9:30 a.m. local time, that's 8:30 a.m. Jamaica time. CWI's Director of Cricket, Jimmy Adams, says age group tournaments across the region are essential to developing the young talent in the West Indies. And that's the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gill. Remember, you can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica, and we are the People's Station.